So the tapping appears to expedite the parasympathetic nervous system, where the mind comes back and says, okay, everything's fine. You can all go back to your homes. Nothing more to see here. And we can breathe more easily. Our body starts to function naturally again. And we're back in our prefrontal cortex and able to think clearly. So we make much better choices. A lot of people hang on to fear, believing I need this fear to help me make good choices. If I'm not afraid, I'll be stupid. And it's like, no, actually, when you're thinking more clearly, when you're more relaxed, you're able to see more clearly and make much better choices.
Greetings and welcome to the Dr. Espen podcast. I'm Espen. Today I'm joined by Brad Yates, internationally known for his creative and often humorous use of EFT, emotional freedom technique. I don't know if you've heard of EFT, but today you'll be learning a lot more about it. Something that I've been interested in for quite a while. I've been studying, and I really have to admit I don't know that much about it, but I do know that it gives epic results. So stay tuned for this conversation. Brad Yates is also known for his work as a best-selling author for the children's book, The Wizard's Wish, and the co-author, of course, the bestseller, Freedom at Your Fingertips. He's also a featured expert in the film The Tapping Solution, which is pretty cool. He's been a presenter for a number of events around the world, including the Jack Canfield's Breakthrough to Success, and also The Secret. I'm sure you guys have heard of The Secret. He's worked alongside Bob Doyle, Dr. Joe Vitale, and many others, and internationally recognized for his videos and talks on this very topic that we'll be discussing today. He's got over 1,000 videos on YouTube. It's been viewed over 45 million times in total. So some of the topics that we'll cover today is tapping into your best self. We're going to learn about emotional freedom technique and perhaps how you can start using that yourself. We're going to learn how to tap into success. We're going to see if we can have a chat about tapping for money mastery or improving our relationship with money. And of course, also tapping into optimal well-being. So Mr. Bradley Yates, welcome, sir. How are you today?
I am excellent. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Espen.
Oh, it's an absolute privilege and pleasure. I want to start by asking the first question here. What is EFT, emotional freedom technique, in your regards? How can we learn a bit more about it, please?
Yeah, certainly. So EFT, emotional freedom techniques, also known as tapping, is a mind-body technique primarily for lowering stress. And we call it tapping because we are literally tapping with our fingertips on different places on our face and torso. And I know for those of you who are new to this, you might say, well, that sounds really weird. Why on earth would we do that? And there's a really good reason. Originally, it was based on acupuncture. So for thousands of years in Chinese medicine, they've said there's a flow of energy through the body along pathways that are called meridians. And when this energy is flowing naturally, we experience our natural state of health and well-being, physically and emotionally. When this energy gets stuck or disrupted, we don't feel so good. We don't think as clearly. We don't make the best choices, and that has all kinds of unfortunate consequences for ourselves. So in traditional Chinese medicine, the doctor would stick needles in these key places around the body to stimulate that healthy flow of energy. And we're just now using our fingertips, tapping to stimulate that. And we have a growing body of scientific research validating it primarily as a stress relief tool. But when you consider that most, if not all, of the issues that bother us physically and emotionally are either caused by or worsened by stress, then having a simple tool for down-regulating stress is profound for all the areas of our lives.
I love the simplicity of your answer, straight to thousands of years old science, understanding the meridians, understanding that there is that subtle flow of energy that moves through the body. It's very similar to what I teach. In fact, that when I said that everything is energy, compared to just the physical reality and the five, or if you include thought, the six senses. When you talk about energy and how things can get stored in the body, I want to specifically understand this a little bit better, because I know that I am consciousness having a human experience. I know that I'm more than just matter or the body. And with this, I wonder, how does one, if we use tapping, is it to remove interference? Would you say, is it to get energy flowing better? How would you word it in terms of what happens when we apply these techniques?
Yes and to all of those, we're still in the discovery stage in terms of the exact mechanics of it. We originally it was okay. It's the meridians, and we're stimulating the meridians. We see that when we tap on these key points, and these are points on the body that have been used in acupuncture for thousands of years, but they're also points you can find with a galvanometer, because these are points of lower electrical resistance. And when we apply pressure through tapping, it's a phenomenon called piezoelectricity, which sends a calming signal to the brain. So the amygdala in the brain, which looks for threats and puts us into fight or flight when it perceives a threat. And for most of us in modern day society, we're kind of in that state to some extent all the time, especially because we're all walking around with a device that's telling us, here's something else to be upset about. So we have this constant stress going on. And so we've seen with the tapping that stress is downregulated. So it's affecting the meridian system. It's sending these calming signals to the brain. We're looking at how it works with the polyvagal system and the vagus nerve, which runs up and down the spine and modulates emotions and works with the different organs of the body. So yeah, it's this flow of energy. And in terms of how it's stored in the body, maybe you're aware of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book about trauma called The Body Keeps the Score. And that's the thing, is that we store these traumas and this stress and all these different things in different places in our body. And so while talk therapy is awesome in many cases, it's not all in our head. So the tapping takes it into the body where this stuff is being held on to.
This makes a lot of sense. Would you say in that part of that is obviously then psychosomatic? I mean, there's trauma in the mind, in the emotion, the thoughts, etc., and it gets stored in the body. But then also there's other things stored in the body as well.
It's interesting now, as you just said that term, psychosomatic, because for the longest time that has been used often as a derogatory thing. Oh, it's just psychosomatic. You're just thinking yourself into illness, as opposed to psycho and somatic. It's in the mind and it's in the body. And all these things are. Nothing is, because it's a mind body. It's connected. So it's not, well, okay, it's just in your mind, or it's just physical. It's just in your body. Everything is a coordinating, connected machine.
Yeah, I want to ask you, Brad. This is really exciting because part of the work that I do is I take people through a 3-day seminar immersion where we look at the primary emotional interference patterns. So I found that there's a connection between the chakra system and emotion. So, fear blocks the first root center, guilt blocks the second sacral center, shame and lack of self-worth blocks the third one, grief, sadness, and anger blocks the fourth one, lies block the fifth one. You get it. So I take people through an ascension process where, hang on, let's clear your biggest fear. Let's get rid of your primary guilt. Let's get rid of the shame. I mean, these are all lower frequency emotions, if you look at the Hawkins scale. But I just wondered, in terms of the work that you do, I'm seeing this in the regards of, hang on, I can tap, I can understand. I talk about programs. For example, we know the imprint period of childhood, where most of our beliefs are borrowed from our parents or whoever raised us. How does tapping play a role in that? Could listeners and viewers, for example, go through a process with either a practitioner like yourself or others in EFT, or maybe even learn and do it ourselves, to be able to tap on certain places to, quote unquote, reprogram? For example, the money program or other types of programs. Could we use that in a similar way, tapping in a similar way?
Absolutely. Because when we get that programming, it becomes an emotional thing. We're taught what is right and wrong. So, for instance, I did a video the other day where I was walking along and I said, let's conjugate the verb to do. So, I do, you do, they do, he, but it's not he do, he does. So if you try to say he do, if you've been taught English grammar, people are taught grammar in all kinds of different ways, but if in proper English, it's he does. So trying to say he do just feels wrong. We have that kind of programming with all kinds of different things in terms of how much money we're allowed to make or how successful we should be and all these different things, what a relationship should look like. And it's that same kind of visceral, that just doesn't feel right to make that much money, just like it doesn't feel right to say, he do. And so we have a stress response. Anytime we try to make a change, there's going to be, the amygdala is going to say, this is threatening. We're stepping outside the comfort zone. It's like there's an electric fence around the comfort zone. And it's going to be uncomfortable, and maybe at very subtle levels. But we just go, I'm going to back off from that. And we stay stuck, and we sit there going, I wonder why I don't make these changes, why things aren't getting better. But every time we try to make that change, something comes up, and our mind is brilliant. We have all kinds of ways of talking ourselves out of it. We can manifest situations that are distractions that will back us away, and then we'll go, oh, I wonder what happened. I was really moving forward with that, but something happened because something told me this is wrong. You're violating the rules. Just like saying he do violates the rules of language. Making a certain amount of money is violating the family rules about finance. Being a certain level of success violates these different rules. So doing the tapping allows us to calm the nervous system down as we look at those things. And we start to say, if I have this belief, an unconscious belief of I shouldn't make over $50,000 a year, anytime an opportunity comes up to make more than that, I'm going to sabotage it. And self-sabotage is simply misguided self-love. It's a very clever way of trying to get us into our comfort zone of what feels safe. And so we have that recognize there's going to be a stress response when I try to change things. Even if my life is crap, it's my crap. I know where it goes. It feels appropriate, and making a change from that feels unsafe. So the tapping allows us to calm that down and go, okay, I'm safe. It is safe for me to look at this and recognize, okay, maybe this program that I've been operating under is misinformation, and I can change that now. And so to me, tapping gives us the freedom to succeed.
I love this. I kind of can see this now. And I love that we can use an approach that is so non-invasive. I mean, I don't even think that acupuncture is invasive, honestly. Like, that is just, if you get a good acupuncturist, obviously don't be jabbing needles and stuff that you don't know. But if you get a good acupuncturist, like I have, as a physician, like, we laugh, but you'd be surprised, I guess, sometimes, but probably not you, but people. I would say in general, when I owned a franchise of health clinics, when I worked with acupuncturists, I would have results that, sometimes it cleared up things that we couldn't see. We cleared up things that we couldn't clear. So I know that this works, and the thousands of years of how this has been practiced, I know that works. And I love how it's a non-invasive process of getting similar type results. I think this is amazing. So let's stay on the whole money conversation, though, because I love how you brought up the rules that are subconscious and or programmed in the unconscious mind from childhood or whatever early stages of life, normally from parents or whoever raised us. And then we unconsciously self-sabotage without awareness our own, physical well-being, financial standing based on these rules. Okay, so when one then gets introduced to emotional freedom technique, and I think that's in the word here, really, how can one then use this? And I understand the tapping part, but where does one start, and what is the process to help people make better choices and achieve better results?
So one of the questions I'll often ask someone at first when we're talking about money is I'll have, in fact, let's go through this. So I'll ask folks watching or listening to close your eyes, take a deep breath, unless you're driving. And I want you to think about the amount of money that you would like to have, that you believe you would like to have. If it's more, you may be totally comfortable with what you have right now. But if you think about, I would love to have this, and imagine what that would look like. So you may be living in a different house, you may be driving a different car, you may just be looking at your online bank statement. Imagining that you have that amount of money and just feeling what goes on inside your body, both physically and emotionally. Say, it's safe for me to have this much money.
It's safe
let that
for
rattle
me
around
to have
inside.
this much money.
And rate that on a scale of 0 to 10. And now, I know that some people are going to say, oh, it's absolutely a 10. And I'm going to challenge you. because unless you already have that much money or are obviously well on your way, then chances are there's some party that says it's not safe, and you may be resisting it in ways that you're not consciously aware of. So I've done this where I was talking to a woman once, and she said, I've gone to all the seminars, I've read all the books on money, and I'm just not making the amount that I want. And I took her through this, and I said, okay, scale is 0 to 10. She said, how safe is it to have that much money? She said, oh, it's a 2. And I said, bingo. Now you know why you don't have that. If you had a young child that was invited to a birthday party and you looked at where that party was and you said, on a scale of 0 to 10, how safe is it for my child to go to that party? If it was a 2, would you let your kid go to that party? Correct answer is no. So that's why I say self-sabotage is misguided self-love. I have all this programming about why it would be wrong or harmful to have that amount of money. So I brilliantly find ways. If I have a job interview, I totally forget about it. I blow it. And I call them, oh, I'm so sorry. And it's like, no, sorry, you blew your opportunity. And part of me is upset, and part of me is like, phew, dodge that bullet. Now I get to stay safely in my financial comfort zone.
Ooh, let that land. And if you're feeling comfortable, great. If you're feeling uncomfortable, even better. That means that it's working. Okay, I like this. Okay, so how does it work? Can you take us through it, Brad? I mean, the tapping part, would you want to run us through a little process so we can kind of do this now and get the experience of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just lay out the basic process. So I'll show you guys where the tapping points are and what the basic version is. And then we'll have some fun with it, and it'll be more of an intuitive process. And I can't even say what's going to happen because it comes through me in the moment. But just for the basics, so that folks know the very basic protocol of EFT, you're going to look at what's bothering you. So it may be, I'm feeling all this stress. I'm really angry at Bob. I feel guilty about having money. Whatever statement you might be aware of in terms of any discomfort you feel, rate that discomfort on a scale of 0 to 10. And then also notice where in your body you might feel it. And I get a knot in my stomach, or I feel some tension in my shoulders, just so that we know where we're starting from. Then what we're going to do is take the fingertips of our index and middle finger of our dominant hand and gently tap on the edge of the opposite hand. And as we do that, we're going to repeat this setup phrase, even though I have this issue. And then you put in there whatever it is. Even though I'm angry at Bob, even though I feel this guilt, whatever it might be. Even though I have this issue, I choose to love and accept myself. And we're doing this because we want to stay at a level of acceptance, because so often we're running away from what's going on. And what we resist persists. So we just want to say, like if you're using the GPS driving someplace, you have to know where you are, and you have to say, okay, I accept that I'm starting from my house so that I can follow directions to get to the store. So we say that 3 times. Even though I have this issue, I choose to love and accept myself. Then we'll tap right here at the beginning of your eyebrow, right near the center of your face. And we'll tap each of these points, generally between 5 and 10 times. You don't need to keep count. And we'll repeat the phrase. So this issue, this guilt, this anger. Next point is right here at the side of your eye. So you follow your eyebrow out to the corner of your eye and repeat this issue. Following the edge of your eye socket to right under the middle of your eye, this issue. Right under your nose, just above your upper lip, this issue. Right below your lower lip, just above your chin, this issue. Now right here where your collarbones just about come together, there's a little bit of a U shape at the base of your throat. And you're going to tap with all of your fingertips, or you can even make a fist and tap that whole area over both those points. This issue. The next point is about 4 inches below your armpit. That's right about bra strap level, and I'm sure even the guys can figure out where that one is. This issue. And then finally, with all of your fingertips, tapping around the top of your head, this issue. Then you'll take a deep breath. And then you would check in again on whatever you were working on, this stress, this anger at Bob. And if it was at an 8 before, you check again. Sometimes it'll go from an 8 to a 0 like that. Sometimes it'll go from an 8 to a 7.75. Any relief we get is progress. And also what sometimes happens is tapping is often like peeling the layers of the onion. So as we clear what we're aware of, we become aware of some other things. So if you feel like the emotion is still there, or in the rare case, it's very rare, but it does sometimes happen that you may be more aware of it, what's happened is you've tuned into something that you've been masking. And so now we're more aware, and then we continue the process on whatever is coming up. So that's the very basic version of EFT. And any questions before we have some fun with this?
I love it. No, that's great. So could a person repeat this by themselves? I mean, can we learn online, for example, or do we have to have like personal training to get this done? Is there any risks? Are we able to do it ourselves? Over to you.
This is why I have so many videos on YouTube, is so that people can just follow along if they don't want to come up with the wording on their own. But no, you can use this. Now, if what's bothering you is some really heavy traumatic memory, in that instance, I would say you might want to work with a professional. There are some places it's best not for us to go on our own. But in general, you can just tap. And you can tap while saying affirmations. You can tap silently, and the process will still be down-regulating whatever stress might be going on. I recommend tapping on a daily basis. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't have to wait until you're aware of stuff growing between your teeth. You do it as maintenance to stay ahead of it. So stay ahead of the stress.
Yeah, I laugh because it's such a pertinent thing, yet so many people don't. I mean, with our teeth, we do, but many oftentimes we don't. I love this. Okay, so would you say that the protocol is what you explained before, with specifically starting with the hand and then over to the face and then onto the chest? Is that the sequence of tapping?
Yeah, going through, starting with the hand with the setup, and then going through these 8 points. While repeating the reminder phrase is what we call the EFT in a nutshell, or the basic protocol.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I understand through neuro-linguistic programming and NLP, the reframing process. I understand also, the anchor process, that if I do certain biophysiological or body type movements over and over again with a thought, with an intention, I can reprogram my unconscious mind. It just makes a lot of sense to tap on meridian points while saying positive things that I wish to, have in my life, and to repeat that process over again. It's just a no-brainer. So now I will invite listeners and viewers to consider what this looks like. I would invite you to feel into what it would be like in 3 months' time if you've had taken the time out to tap regularly, to learn about Brad's work and to learn about emotional freedom technique in general. And if you're interested, and before we continue, we have more time with some more epic questions. I just want to pop that in there. Tapwithbrad.com. So that's the website, tapwithbrad.com. And we've also heard, over 45 million views on YouTube so far. And so if you go to YouTube, it's Tap with Brad, B-R-A-D. I'm excited about this, man. I'm going to be trying this. And you mentioned that if it's a real heavy concern, if it's an issue for people, if it's something deep and traumatic, they might want to work with a professional. So before we do that, go to the website, check it out, do the work, tune into it. What I love to do with YouTube is I've got YouTube, I think it's called Red or Premium or something. So I don't get the ads. I'm not interested in wasting my time with these ads. My time is precious. So I subscribe to it. That means that I can download the videos. All right. So even when I start my morning routine, I can have those videos downloaded previously. So I don't need to turn my phone on. I don't need to have all my messages arriving, but I can still watch Brad tapping, and I can still do tapping in the morning. I can do my yoga, my breath work, my qigong without having to have connected to the internet. So I'm just pointing that out for those of you who will go to Tap with Brad on YouTube, find your favorite video, press download and or save that video, and maybe have a morning routine for yourself to be able to tap with Brad and refire and rewire some of these programs, patterns, and of course allow the energy to flow. I want to ask quickly, Brad, if I may, can tapping help? Actually, before I do, anything to add, please? I feel like I'm talking a lot. Anything you want to add to what I just said?
No, that's all great what you're putting out there. And yeah, it's having that energy hygiene routine to get your energy in the best place to create the life that you want.
You just did drop one of my favorite sentences, energy hygiene. You know what? I had the privilege for 6 months to train with a gentleman who was hired by one of the most prominent politicians in the world. I won't mention names, but everyone knows this person, to do energy security. And that was protecting the space, not from physical attacks, but from, attacks in the field, and of all kinds of different things. And throughout the years, I've been more and more intimately aware that there is an exchange of energy with our thoughts, with our emotions, with the people, with our community. And you just mentioned energy hygiene, which is for me, the first step is energy awareness. The second step is energy hygiene. And then we get into energy protection, energy security, in my mind anyway. I want to know from you, in your mind, what is energy hygiene?
It's keeping that our system as clean as possible, just like with our body or our teeth. We bathe on a regular basis, we brush our teeth on a regular basis. We don't just wait until it's obvious, and we don't wait until people are holding their nose around us and going, "Oh, that's right, I haven't taken a shower in 3 weeks." So we have a hygiene routine to take care of ourselves, and the same with energy. And just as you said, there's an exchange of energy, and that's why I am always so appreciative of people doing this energy work, because it's not just for you. As we maintain a healthier energetic state, then that benefits the collective whole, in terms of the people that we interact with, but also because everything is energy and we're all connected, it naturally benefits the collective whole. So the tapping that we just did a moment ago helps bring more peace into the world. And, to use David Hawkins' phrasing, the effect is modest but measurable.
Absolutely. Okay, so to clear out and clean our energy system, I absolutely agree. So we have a mental body, the emotional body, the physical body, the etheric body. Like, we know there's a lot of aspects to us. I found that throughout the years, I don't want to say mistakes, but a lot of the incoherent actions, rituals, routines, behaviors that I had came from unresolved emotions. I'll give you an example. I woke up, I was 5. I walked into my brother's bedroom and I find him dead, right? That was a trauma. My mom didn't know how to deal with it. So she shut down, became an alcoholic. And that's kind of, the general consensus of how I was raised. So I grew up and I was like, hang on, I don't know why I'm so strong mentally and so incredibly weak emotionally. I don't get why I'm not able to regulate myself. I don't get why, I'm struggling with money back then, and I'm struggling with relationships back then. And I look back now and I go, hang on, I get it. Young Espen went through trauma. He didn't have the resources around him, the support to deal with this. So he shut down. And so he suppressed those emotions. And, they came through with universal lessons. And I crashed a motorcycle, almost died a couple of times. And then I realized, hang on, I'm living in fight or flight. Hang on, I can't live in fight or flight if I want to have a beautiful life. Why am I living in fight or flight? Ooh, unresolved traumatic emotions. Have you realized or seen instances when you do EFT and types of, the kind of work that you share with us today, there's some emotions will come up that people will go through emotional healings throughout these processes? And if so, how does that work?
Yeah, with tapping, there are all kinds of stories. Sometimes the process is slower and we work that traumatic response down. And there are times where it has happened instantaneously, times where I've worked with somebody on a traumatic memory of something that happened in their childhood, and they're almost in tears, maybe even shaking when they're talking about it. And in several minutes of tapping, they can relate it as though it was a movie and it would happen to somebody else. And that's not always how it happens, but sometimes we just take the layers off little by little. But there are many stories. Many people have used this for PTSD. Soldiers, veterans, have used this to clear up traumatic memories from war, where things that stopped them from being able to sleep and being able to get to a place where they can have a good night's sleep and not be haunted by these memories. It's not that you forget what happened, you just remove the emotional charge. And we are able to, with the tapping, to sending the signals to the brain, calming down that fight or flight response to where we're able to say, yes, I acknowledge that what happened was awful, but it's not a threat to my well-being such that I have to go into that threat mode.
I love what you mentioned earlier about the amygdala, which is obviously how, a lot of our responses emotionally is stored and how we react to the current situation and past situations. Would you say then, as you mentioned before, that when you do tapping and you reprogram, that this has a calming effect, a reduction of stress effect on the amygdala and as such on our emotional response in the moment?
Yeah, that appears to be one of the mechanisms of how it works, is that we're sending these calming signals to move us. So when the amygdala perceives threat, we go into fight or flight. We go from the prefrontal cortex, our creative, clear thinking, rational mind, into our midbrain, and coming out of instinct and old behaviors, old learned programming, whether it was effective or not. It's what, if we're not thinking and we're just out of our mind, the prefrontal cortex is gone. So now we're just operating on old behaviors. This allows it. So that's the sympathetic nervous system. So the tapping appears to expedite the parasympathetic nervous system, where the mind comes back and says, okay, everything's fine. You can all go back to your homes. Nothing more to see here. And we can breathe more easily. Our body starts to function naturally again. And we're back in our prefrontal cortex and able to think clearly. So we make much better choices. A lot of people hang on to fear, believing I need this fear to help me make good choices. If I'm not afraid, I'll be stupid. And it's like, no, actually, when you're thinking more clearly, when you're more relaxed, you're able to see more clearly and make much better choices.
It makes a lot of sense. I was saying the same thing in my emotional wounding of the past, like I mentioned with my brother and with my accidents and other things, realized what brought to my attention that I was actually going through an awakening or a healing process, because if I didn't heal those emotions, well, I would pass on my patterns and my programs, my BS, my belief systems to my 5-year-old son, which I'm just not interested in doing. So I know a lot of our students, and maybe the people watching and listening this interview as well, would go, okay, you know what, this makes sense. I am willing to do the work because I will lay the foundation for our children to be able to be more emotionally intelligent. So thank you for sharing this work. I think it's really pertinent. I'm excited to get into a routine of tapping every day. Is it possible to, as you mentioned, use those affirmations or those sentences that you shared before and simply to use positive affirmations? Is that the general gist of how to do the tapping?
In its original form, tapping is meant as a clearing technique, so that you take whatever is bothering you, what the negative statement per se, and you're clearing it. However, you can also tap while saying positive statements, positive affirmations, because here's the thing. If I have an affirmation, say, I want to say, I am healthy, wealthy, and wise. And I try to say that over and over. I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise. I'm a millionaire, or something like that. My unconscious mind is going to say, that's BS. And I'm going to have an emotional and energetic response to that. So what's really being affirmed is that uncomfortable energetic response to the statements about wealth and money. So if I tap while I'm saying those affirmations, I can calm down the energy system and feel relaxed and say, I'm a millionaire. It's like, all right, it's not in my bank yet, but I am connected to the source of all abundance. by that, at some level, I am a multi-billionaire. Now I'm just allowing myself to find the mechanisms to put it into my bank account. So I don't feel that tension that I may not be consciously aware of. A lot of people are going around and saying their affirmations about I'm a millionaire, and they have their vision boards and say, oh yes, this is so awesome. But energetically, we feel discomfort about it. And so that energetic discomfort is what we're really affirming and putting out there. And we're stopping ourselves from taking those actions and making those choices that could lead to that abundant lifestyle.
I love it. I say the same thing, a lot of people think that we manifest what we want, and I say we don't. If you manifested what you want, you would have had everything already. We manifest what we are vibrationally. And so there's the thought, which is the intention in the field, I want $1 million. And then there's the energy or the emotion within us that normally goes, shit, I need money to pay my bills. And so the emotion, the vibration, the program actually doesn't match the thought in the field. And so what we have is the feeling coming into manifestation. So I can see how tapping would play a role in synchronizing those two. I want to know, Brad, tapping, addictions. For me, I've seen over a lot of years that people think that the addiction's the problem. The drugs, the alcohol, the pornography, or the scrolling endlessly on social media or Facebook or Netflix, whatever vice. Okay, so if you're watching and listening right now, just be cognitive to think about what it is that your vice is and what it is that you'd like to let go of. Okay, once you've got that, I'd make an assumption. The assumption is that the vice, the addiction, is not the problem. It is a way to feel better when you feel the emotion underlying the issue, which is the problem. So let's say you come home from a stressful week. You've had a tough week at work. You come home, you feel no good. You reach for the wine, you reach for the chocolate, right? The wine and the chocolate secretes, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, whatever. And then you feel better. Yay. So what's the problem? Is it the alcohol, the sugar, or the Netflix, or is it the emotion? What I came to see in my life and with our patients and our students was the emotional wound is the problem. Because if that was not there, and if you come home from a tough week's work, but you feel fulfilled and you feel happy, you've achieved what you wanted, and you feel really fulfilled on the inside, you're not going to need to reach for that, whatever the addiction is, because you have that emotional need met and you feel great on the inside. I've loved your 2 cents worth on this in terms of the emotion being the underlying cause of the issue, and then speaking to potentially how EFT could help in such a scenario with addiction specifically.
Yeah, absolutely, Espen. Everything you just said is right on. The drug of choice is not the problem. It's a failed attempt at a solution. And so it is that underlying problem. So just like, Tylenol, if I don't have a headache, I'm not reaching for the Tylenol. So it's looking at what is that underlying wound, the trauma that might be there, the fear that I can't handle life. So I had the privilege of teaching EFT at Sacramento Drug Court for 3 years. This was a court-mandated program for people coming out of jail for drug offenses, and just all part of their recovery program, and teaching them this as a tool to deal with that stress that comes up. Because, again, self-sabotage is misguided self-love. Taking the drug is an attempt. It's a matter of saying, I can't handle where I'm at right now. I need to medicate. I need something to make me feel better. And looking at, all right, so what's causing the uncomfortable feeling? What's causing the anxiety, the stress, the pain? And then looking at, maybe we can change our mind about that. And so with the tapping, first of all, it helps calm down the craving. This was my first introduction to EFT, was at a workshop taught by Gary Craig, the founder of EFT. And he had us tapping on chocolate. And he gave everyone a piece of chocolate and said, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you want this? And I was a bit of a chocoholic at the time. And so it was an 8 or a 9 for me. And after just a couple of moments of tapping, I couldn't eat it. I had as much interest in the chocolate as I did the foil wrapper. And I did not eat chocolate for 2 years after that. Cool. Now, I recovered. I got better. But I also know that I can go back and tap to where it's like, you know what, I want to go back and be eating clean again. And so I can cleared the craving for any foods that I choose to go without. And there is so much of what's behind the addiction is, it's going to calm the pain. Like with chocolate, we have this association to parties and Halloween and Christmas and all kinds of things that are pleasurable. So it's not just the chemicals. The chemicals are part of it, but it's not just the chemicals. There's all the chemicals in the brain of the association. It's like a Pavlovian response that, oh, chocolate makes me feel happy. And it's unfortunate that in Harry Potter, Dr. Lupin or Professor Lupin says, "Here, eat some chocolate; it'll make you feel better," because that's the problem, is that so many of us have that that programming. And whether it's about chocolate or, as you said, cigarettes or alcohol or drugs or pornography or any number of things, reality TV, different people have different drugs of choice. Some of them are much more hazardous, some much more devastating, but all of them can be distractions to an awesome life. And so tapping can definitely be a great adjunct. I've worked with a number of people, as I said, in different programs who have used 12-step programs, and finding some kind of support program to help you through that is great. And then having this to deal with that stuff that's coming up, so you don't have to white knuckle it, and you can calm down the distress that you're feeling when you might be reaching for that thing that you've told yourself, yeah, I probably shouldn't be having that.
Makes sense. Cause and effect, right? And I just want to point this out for listeners and viewers. If you do have, well, I would imagine most people do have some sort of vice. Firstly, my suggestion is let go of the judgment of that, because we realize that that's coming from a place of need. There's something within you that's not being, a need that's not being met, something that's there, right? So let's acknowledge that without any judgment. Secondly, when was the first time that started? Maybe we can feel into where the wound or the issue started. And thirdly, if you recognize the vice on the outside, if it is wine or chocolate, from my perspective, I'm not saying don't have the wine, don't have the chocolate. If you are to have the wine or the chocolate, at least then you do so in a beautiful, graceful way without judgment and guilt. Because sometimes we have it and we say that we're not going to have it, and then we feel crap afterwards because of guilt vibrating at 30 oscillations a second as per the Hawkins scale. So then the guilt is more poisonous than the chocolate, right? So firstly, let's let go of the program. Let's understand the cause and effect, the cause being the emotional wounding or the how we feel at the moment, in that moment, the effect being I need stimulus, aka chocolate or whatever. Let go of the guilt, and you might just find that you eat a lot less chocolate, and then try the tapping perhaps beforehand and see how this goes. Now, what you're realizing in the moment perhaps is not only cause and effect, but also how you can apply some very simple, very inexpensive strategies to overcome some of the issues that you've been facing. Brad, this is really exciting. I'm really grateful that we get to talk about such powerful techniques that can help our listeners and viewers instead of the traditional, stuff that's out there. And I want to ask, I've got one last question, just off the cuff. I'll ask you a question. You ready for this one?
I don't know. I don't know what the question is, but I hope I'll be ready. Tap, tap, tap.
Yes,
Even though I might not be
that.
ready. Go for it, Dr. Espen.
You are so ready. Okay, here's my question. I want you to imagine, Brad, that every sentient being alive on this planet is present, listening, tuning in, and watching when you share your message to the world. So take a breath, take your time. Whenever you're ready, do share, please. What is your message to the world right now?
And it goes along with what you were just saying about in terms of an addiction and letting go of the judgment and having compassion. It's really about learning to love yourself and acknowledging that you are worthy of love. You can see I've got Michelangelo's David in the back, and I have David's everywhere because Michelangelo said, the statue is already there perfect inside the marble. All I have to do is chip away what doesn't belong to reveal the masterpiece that's inside. And to me, that is the perfect metaphor for what we're doing with tapping. We're just tapping away, chipping away what doesn't belong, the guilt, the shame, the unworthiness, all of these misunderstandings, to recognize that underneath that all, you are a magnificent child of the universe, worthy and deserving of the best this world has to offer. You are a gift to be shared. And please let go of the stuff that stops you from sharing that gift, because we could really use them.
Mic drop moment. Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Yates. Again, tapwithbrad.com, tapwithbrad YouTube, same thing with Facebook, same thing with Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it, all the above. Brad, thank you so much for taking your time. Thank you for sharing these gifts. Definitely, guys, if this has been useful, press the share button, share this with as many people as you can. If there's anyone that struggles with the money, the addictions, the emotions, whatever, share this with him. You never know how far this interview could actually go and help people just by doing that. So please go ahead and share this. And again, Brad, thank you so much for your time. I'll be tapping away and I'll be thinking of you and I'll be enjoying the process. And I want to say it's been really great hanging out with you, mate. Thanks for what you're doing for everybody out there sharing these powerful tools. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity to share this.
Mr. Brad Yates. See you next time, everybody.